I thank God for Edwina Price. Before she found me, I was invisible, lost in some Michigan nursery. It was only luck that we met.
Michigan, 1888.
She needed help with the design for her uncle's garden.
I'm afraid I'm quite lost. My roses simply won't bloom.
When it came to actual horticulture, she was admittedly a bit lost. But the design, it was inspired. The footpaths, the vantages. This Edwina, she was a woman of vision. We saw each other more often. I helped her with her work, and I don't know what she did, but I felt like more around her. When she asked me to move to New York, I didn't hesitate. It all came so fast thanks to Edwina's connections. First, it was simple event arrangements, then Manhattan rooftop gardens, the Hamptons. Together, we were something.
Where are the hyacinths for Mrs. Pole's event?
Oh, they're coming, ma'am. I expect they'll be ready to deliver next week.
Next week?
Mrs. Pole was expecting those hyacinths 2 days ago.
I'm so sorry, Miss Price, but it's out of season for hyacinths, and getting them to bloom...
Just get it done.
I need to do something for Edwina. She's been so good to me, given me so many opportunities, and all I managed to do lately is bungle everything. I don't want to be that woman anymore. I need something that can show her I'm more than just a botanist. Something that proves I can hold my own in this city. Maybe then we'd be something more again. Roses aren't the most difficult plant to hybridize. That honor would probably go to orchids. That doesn't mean they're easy, though. On the contrary, roses have a somewhat notoriously complex breeding system. Even the most basic crossbreeding can prove difficult. And here I am, attempting perfection. I just need to be patient. But haven't I been patient? How long do I need to wait for what I want? But that's what this is for. This rose is my action, ambition, and so it must be perfect. It has to be something. It still isn't right, is it? It can't be sun or hydration issues. It must be the soil. Nothing will grow if there isn't substance to the earth, of course. What am I doing? Why am I like this? It always goes this way, doesn't it? I invent attachments, I yearn beyond what I should, I fixate, and I try. I try so hard, but in the end, they always let me down. And I discovered that I've misinterpreted everything. Again, is it going to end this way with Edwina? Will she let me down? I do not think so. I hope that's not the case.
My goodness. Maggie? Did you do this? This rose, it's...
I did. Do you like it?
Oh, Maggie. This will take me right back to the top. You have no idea. My goodness, I can publish a new book. Crossbreeding of roses. I can see it right now.
Edwina? I was wondering, could we... I'd like to be credited with this as well. I'd like both of our names on it. Together. I thank God for Edwina Price.
I'm Holly Hardy, and this is my poem, Portrait of Your Lover in Grief, after Untitled Self-Portrait by Anthony Chase. There are days I drop words of comfort on myself like falling rain, and remember it is enough to be taken care of by myself. Brian Andreas. You rest your head on your own shoulder. Gray parts your hair with time, fragments of color, your faces, downward inclining geometries of grief. Green, gunmetal, sea, serene, lost shards of blue light, violet softened by sorrow. Behind the yellow that holds you, as you hold yourself, together. Faux sunlight, more mustard than sky, more autumn than gold. You are a mountain, consoling a man, consoling a mountain, tender. These are not tears of color on your no-color shirt. You are held, beheld in beauty, beloved. You are more than yourself.
My best friend from college loved a good sad song more than anyone else. I did too. We liked to send them back and forth over text during the few hours of the day we weren't together and listen to them when we were. Our playlist consisted of everything from Broadway ballads to acoustic versions of already sad songs, somehow made even sadder with less production. It's been almost 7 years since she died. Whenever I find a new sad song that I'm sure outsads the others, I have the reflex to send it to her, but then I remember that I can't. Who do I send my sad songs to? She loved a sad song, and I loved to listen to them with her on road trips in my living room while doing her makeup before going out. The day after she died, I had tickets to see Waitress, the musical. I went and sobbed quietly in the darkness of the theater. We used to listen to She Used to Be Mine in the car like it was a top 40 pop hit. There I was, hearing it live in the theater for the first time, knowing she never would. Abby loved sad songs, felt them deeply in her soul. Maybe she knew that dying would be the ultimate sad song. Maybe I'm just assigning meaning where there isn't any. I took some time off sad songs for a bit after she died. Her death made all the sad songs in the world just feel unbearably stupid. There's so much music she's missed out on in the years since her death, and I think that makes me the saddest. She would have loved it, felt it all so deeply in her bones. I still listen to her playlist when I have the bandwidth for it. I like that they're still here. It makes me feel like she is too.
Egg rolls. Sadie hasn't cooked in a while, she realizes when she returns home at 7:30 at night with too many groceries. The combination of her brimming tote and plastic shopping bags leaves red indentations on her pale skin. But nothing can stop Sadie when she settles on a goal. Not even heaving like 25 pounds of ingredients up 3 flights of stairs to her new apartment. She has gotten this far by brute force and wanting, and she doesn't know how to stop. Especially after eating out so many days in a row due to her new accounting job providing her lunch every time she came into the office, and no longer feeling guilty for ordering takeout with her own money. Sadie craves the taste of savory, crispy, freshly fried egg rolls. When she put the name on her tongue, it half satisfies her. She needs it in her hands, her mouth, her stomach. Ordering egg rolls was a no-go in Northern Virginia. In any restaurant for Sadie, really, here or at home in Minnesota. Sadie's mom's egg rolls were the best, and nothing could beat homemade. How hard can it be? She has spent most of her life helping make egg rolls at home. Early in, Sadie discovers she lacks a julienne peeler and settles for hand-slicing the carrots and taro into thin strands. The repetitive movement of washing, scrubbing, peeling, chopping, and slicing vegetables wears out her wrists and fingers. She learns from watching a YouTube video how to peel and devein shrimp because she rarely eats shrimp unless it was carefully concealed in one fried form or another. Her bowls in her new apartment are also not large enough for all the contents of the egg roll filling, and Sadie ends up splitting the filling into 3 separate bowls for mixing. She files in her mind to order mixing bowls later. Carrying the bowl down from the counter to the dining room chair to give herself leverage as she hand mixes vegetables, shrimp, pork, eggs, garlic oil, fish sauce, and other general seasoning together, the smell of raw egg roll filling diffuses into the air. She breathes in deeply the familiarity of the meaty, eggy, potently delicious smell. For a moment, she is home. In a kitchen with 3 pots boiling on the stove, the kitchen sink filled to the brim with dirty plates, cups, utensils, and even a bowl of soaking strawberries. And there are bodies everywhere. There's no space to move in the kitchen with her sisters and Mom to either side of her. It's caging, overwhelming. Sadie looks around her own kitchen apartment and finds that she has left behind a mess too, with cutting boards, knives, bowls, green onion ends, eggshells, and vegetable skins everywhere. She needs to clean right now. Before leaving Minnesota, all Sadie wanted was to be left alone. Living at home meant there was always someone in the kitchen or the living room. Her mom was always yelling for her from downstairs. She would always be cleaning up after someone. Even her own bedroom wasn't sacred because she didn't have a lock on her door, and sisters came in and out when they needed someone to annoy. Her apartment is hers, something she loves so much. All the bowls and plates in the kitchen are always in the same place. It's okay for her to leave books on her bedroom floor. Her shoes are perfectly lined up and never missing in the closet by the front door. Even the hair in the bathroom drain is hers. There is never something she has to pick up or clean because of her sisters or her parents. It is gratifying to only have herself to care for. I wanted this, she thinks. I want this. When she washes the final dish, she feels calmer and resumes cooking, moving to her favorite part, the actual rolling. After cracking and squishing the egg in the bowl to use as the seal, Sadie pauses, standing in the middle of the kitchen, and realizes that without her sister, nobody peeled the rice paper wraps. No matter, Sadie thinks. This part is easy too, only tedious. It is 9 p.m. when Sadie finally begins to roll. She is so close to the end, her stomach grumbles in anticipation. As she rolls and rolls and rolls, the egg roll filling doesn't diminish, and her shoulders ache from looking down. Sadie's hand works on muscle memory. She places the rice paper wrapper flat on the cutting board in front of her. At home, Sadie would roll egg rolls with 2 of her sisters crammed around the island table in the kitchen. She spoons a dollop of filling in the corner nearest to her and folds the corner over. She would take turns with her sisters, one of them stopping every now and then to refill the egg wash, lay saran wrap over a finished layer of egg rolls in the aluminum tray, or to take a snack break. Sadie folds the 2 opposite corners in and starts rolling the dollop upward, keeping the shape tight. Back then, she and her sisters would complain about their aching shoulders and the endless egg roll filling. She dabs her fingertips into the egg and swipes it onto the final corner of the egg roll, sealing it up. But their mom would be there too, taking up the final step, double frying it to golden perfection. Sadie lifts the egg roll up to the light. Somehow, even with her craving, she hates what she's doing now more because she's alone. Sadie shakes her head, washes her hands, and then turns on some music to buffer the silence. Minnesota always left a dry feeling in her mouth. Middle of nowhere Midwest. Why did her parents decide to settle there after their immigration from Vietnam? She could admit they had a good schooling system, but what else was there really? The coast always got the new things first. New trends, new restaurants, more culture. The Midwest was always playing catch-up. Sadie was determined to shed her Midwestern girl persona and become cultured. She didn't know where the culture was in Virginia yet, but she would find it. She'd set her mind on it. Though it would have to be outside of work, since her company insisted on catering only increasingly bland American food. Minnesota is always the same, she thinks. Virginia is going to be different. By 11 p.m., Sadie's fingers are wet, cold, and red in the sink. She scrapes dried egg guts out of her fingertips for a full minute before giving up for a moment. Behind her, the electric stove slowly warms the oil in the black cast iron pot her mom gifted her when she moved away. Sadie has a hard time lifting it by herself, especially when it's full of oil, because it weighs like 10 pounds. She needs to check the oil, but she can't get the stick, chunky debris out from under her nails, and her body grows hot from the panic, choosing between checking the oil or cleaning her fingers. She quickly wipes her wet hands on a towel and dips a pair of chopsticks into the oil, watching for bubbles. It's not ready. She returns to scrubbing her fingers. She finishes double frying her first batch of egg rolls at almost midnight. The music from her phone keeps blaring, though the sounds of the streets are as quiet as they are back in the Minnesota suburbs. Wrapping a napkin around a hot egg roll, she blows on it to cool it down and then takes a bite. She is met with soft rice paper. She gnaws, swallows hard. She thinks, I want to go home. The dissatisfaction leaves her hungrier than when she started on this egg roll journey. She is hungry for something that moving did not fill, that she did not make, and that Virginia could not replace.
Shark-Infested Water by Amanda Chiato. The trouble with the babies is that they never did worship you. They are prime time receivers. It's built into their bow-bun cheeks and milk-drunk eyes. When they cry, they are calling for the mother shark, who is 400 years old with tattered and silky skin. The girl wears her mating scars like pearls, a slow phantom sexing the muck. You once listened to the world through the water, its change and shift through the body of time. Only a shark mother would know a baby's qualms. She bares her teeth and rolls back her eyes, thinking of being hooked like a treasure above her water world. You can't compete with a tiny shark trapped in human skin. The adage confirms the drenched facts. If you can't make a baby happy, put it in water. Umbilical Cords and Bluebirds by Amanda Chiato. The trouble with the babies is that in Disney movies, they never show you the mud of making one. Never mind the blood, just wish upon a star. The doctors are dressed as rabbits and deer. Her body is the evacuated castle, and the classic placenta is made of marigolds. In real animated births, the umbilical cord hangs across the sky-reaching branches in the enchanted forest, like a garland of remembrance. The bluebirds peck at it and sing, "Here was the beginning of a pretty picture." Imaginary Creatures by Amanda Chiato. The trouble with the babies is that they never quit that torrential drool, and you get so caught up with that you start rafting through its mouthy sweetness without any sense of direction toward a waterfall that you can hear shushing its lullaby in the forest's newborn embrace. The views are so spiritual in the enmeshment of tenderness. You can't pull yourself away from the flecks of golden sunlight and the young moss tethered to the tree bark. The babies believe in the Sasquatch and the Loch Ness. They are too close to the idea of illusion. You can slow down and let it happen to you, the heat here. Walk upside down in it. Switch places with the imaginary so you can breathe again.
The Bust by Susan McNally. I'll get this over with first. Buck, my husband, had sex with my roommate, Sally, in college, long before he met me. Once, maybe twice. And she had famously bragged that she was so flexible she could get her legs over her head. Big deal. Centuries ago. We laughed about it. Sometime afterwards, she had gifted Buck a bust of Lenin because he was majoring in Russian studies. I kept wondering where, back then in the boonies, she could have acquired such a bust, but Buck had no idea. He said he had it still somewhere. Sally and I exchanged occasional cards and heard of each other from our other roommate, Fran, but we hadn't seen each other in at least 20 years when I got the call. She and her husband, Rowan, were headed to the Washington coast, and did we want to meet up? They had rented a spacious house, and we could stay a couple of nights. They had plenty of good food and wine, and we were just to bring ourselves if we could come. I was curious to see how she was. There's something about living with someone, however briefly and however long ago, that makes that person stick in your life. My memory of her was that underneath all her bluster and chatter was a deeply hurt little girl. So I agreed a little warily because I hadn't seen her in so long and had never met Rowan, her third husband. Buck was always up for the Washington coast, and so we loaded the car and drove to Edmonds, where we caught a ferry to the peninsula. The house was on the road to the beach at La Push along the Quileute River. After some difficulty, there's no cell service in those parts, we located the house, and Sally came running out in her Uggs and a flannel shirt, just beaming. "Jean!" she shouted with glee. "You look great!" It struck me immediately how much prettier she was than I had remembered her. In school, she had long hair that dragged down her rather square-jawed face, and she was stocky. The 25 years that had passed had been kind to her. She was youthful, with short, shiny brown hair, playful green eyes, and a dancer's build. She told me she'd been dancing again, and it showed. I felt positively dumpy in comparison. Rowan, on the other hand, looked much older than Sally. He wore a man's retro hat, think beatnik, and was already quite gray. He had a crisp manner and was a man of few words. I could feel Buck was struggling to make conversation with him as Sally and I prattled on about life, people from college, and funny, crazy shit we got up to in the apartment and high-rise. I kept one ear on the Rowan Buck situation, but all I heard was that Rowan was there to fish and that he whittled flutes and sold them at the Renaissance Fair near their Salem home. We settled in while Rowan made pasta puttanesca. Sally opened some wine and followed me about as I unpacked, set up my sound machine, alarm clock, and lined up my nighttime water glasses. She talked of her yoga, dance, and water aerobics. She laughed gaily when I reminded her of the time we took acid and got so freaked out that we had to crawl out of the party at DKE and all the way home. Dinner went well. Rowan talked a bit more than before, but mainly it was Sally, Buck, and I who held up the conversation. Afterwards, Rowan played his flute, and more wine was drunk. "Rowan's getting up at the crack of dawn to go fishing," Sally said near the end of the night. "But I'd like to walk on the beach." "Hole in the wall," Buck replied. I explained that was a sea stack on the beach with a literal hole in it. You walked through the hole to a series of tide pools with all kinds of cool creatures. "Oh!" Sally exclaimed and clapped her hands. The bed was Procrustean. Our feet hung off the ends. I had trouble sleeping and I had to pee a lot. The wine had made me pee, but also the knowledge that I had to get dressed and risk encountering one of them. It was a long night. We woke to a glorious day. Rowan was long gone, and we made sandwiches and put our packs together and set out for Hole in the Wall. The beach walking was tough at first as we sank deep into the sand, which was more like crushed pebbles than actual sand. As experienced beach walkers, we had our rubber boots, but Sally had only hiking boots that she declared could get as wet as could be. She didn't care. Still, crossing Ellen's Creek, she had to use a log, and Buck walked alongside her, he in the water holding her hand as she danced across it. It seemed to me she didn't need the hand, and again I admired her fitness and grace. Hole in the Wall delighted her. "Oh my God," she yelled to us from up ahead. "That's the biggest starfish I've ever seen." But soon she realized they were everywhere. Red, orange, pink, purple starfish clinging to the sides of rocks or spread out at the bottoms of little pools. And there were the sea anemones, deep bowls of fleshy green surrounded by tentacles. "It's also sexual," Sally said, laughing. "They sting their prey with the tentacles and paralyze them. Look, that one is sucking out a clam." Buck pointed, full of energy. Sally picked up a shell and poked one of the anemones, and it closed quickly around it. "Tidal pool porn," Sally giggled. Then she screamed, "Oh my God, I got squirted right up my shorts!" And indeed, her leg was dripping. "There are tons of squirters, clam feet." Buck put his finger into one of the tube-like feet that stuck out of the sand. The clam instantly withdrew. "Did it suck on you?" Sally asked, with her big smile. Something of the high-rise Sally was coming back to me now. In truth, I never knew her that well. Fran was my friend. Fran had asked me to go in with them for the lottery, for the room. Sally back then had struck me as a little forced. Her laugh was too much, her flirting too much, her chatter too much. She slept with half of DKE, or so I thought. But there was also that sadness that tinged everything she did. While I had a regular boyfriend, Fran and Sally did not, and often ended up hooking up with some guy at one of the booze-filled parties. I usually stayed home and read. I walked apart for a while, watching them as they poked about in the pools. Behind them, pinnacles of rock rose straight out of the sea, and an occasional oyster catcher flew by, flashing its red bill and shrieking. I crunched over mussel shells, inhaling the salt air, and wondered whether Sally had bought busts for the other guys she slept with or just for Buck. "Tide's coming in," I warned. Tides were serious business out here. "Shit," Buck said as he looked at how far we had come out. The water was rising fast, and Sally, true to her word, marched through the water when necessary, soaking her boots. I struggled in my big rubber boots as the water came rushing in. I fell behind and tried to run, but I started sinking in the sandy muck, and soon I was stuck fast, the water lashing at me and cascading down the back of my boots. I couldn't move. I tried pulling my foot out of the boot, but I'd sunk so far, the pressure of the muck held both feet down. I started to lose my balance. Swaying and trying to stay upright, I screamed for help. Sally and Buck were ahead of me, and the roar of the surf drowned out my voice. I screamed until I was hoarse. I would fall, rooted to the spot, and break both legs, then drown face down in the muck, while Sally and Buck chatted away. I screamed again. Nothing. But in a moment, Sally turned to look for me, and when she saw me waving frantically, she ran to me fast. "Grab my hand," she shouted, bracing herself against a rock. She heaved, and I yanked out one muck-covered boot at a time. Buck ran up to help, but I was already free. I shot him a look, but didn't say a word. The tide pushed us further up the beach in even deeper sand, and we trudged home weary. Again, Buck helped Sally across Ellen's Creek. "God, won't a beer taste good?" Sally said, as we dragged ourselves across the parking lot to the car. "And a soak." "A bath?" I asked. "No, the hot tub." "Oh, shit, I didn't bring a suit." "Suit and tie not required." Sally looked at Buck and laughed. He looked at me and laughed with her. At me, just like my mother used to do sometimes with my brother when they ganged up on me. Rowan had the fish all cleaned and ready to cook when we got home. He'd made a salad of sprouts and radishes and cherry tomatoes. Tonight, he wore a beret. We got some beers and recounted our day, and everybody lounged about as Rowan pan-seared the steelhead. The fish was delicious. I'd never eaten fish just caught. Rowan was magic in the kitchen. More wine was shared, and after dinner, Rowan brought out a pipe with some hashish. "I haven't had hash since college," I exclaimed. And I knew Buck hadn't either. I was wary of it, but wanted to be game, so I took a few hits. Buck had more. A lot more. And Rowan and Sally also took quite a bit. The next part of the night is somewhat blurry. For the first hour, I was so high I didn't trust myself to speak. My heart was pounding and my mouth was dry. The flames from candles on the table extended nearly to the ceiling, and everything looked slightly sinister in the dim light. Then everyone was outside. The cool night air revived me. "Hot tub time," Sally declared, and right there and then she stripped down naked and climbed into the tub. Rowan went inside for some towels. I assumed Buck would have nothing to do with the tub. But to my utter horror, he pulled off his t-shirt and unzipped his pants and climbed somewhat unsteadily in after her. "Come on in, Jean," Sally said to me. Her breasts bobbed right on the surface of the water, and her green eyes glowed from the reflection of the tiki lanterns on the deck. Rowan returned, stark naked, still wearing the beret, and smiled at me. I felt nauseous and went inside. When I returned, I was wearing my underwear and a t-shirt, and I climbed in like that. Everyone roared, laughing at me, and I blushed. "When was your first time?" Sally asked Buck, and I realized they'd been talking about sex. "Mandy," Buck answered. "At camp in an old school bus." I'd never heard of Mandy. "How old were you?" Rowan inquired, sipping his wine. 12. 12? I was horrified. "Well, it was August, so almost 13. "Jesus, you never told me about that." My t-shirt clung unpleasantly to my body. "You never asked." Rowan turned on the jets and Sally's boobs bounced up and down. "Mine," said Rowan softly, "was on a red sand beach in the Galapagos." "Rowan's parents were nomads," Sally said with a beaming smile. "Wanderers," Rowan corrected. "And your first, Jean?" Rowan lit a pipe and passed it my way, but I declined. Everyone was waiting to hear my answer. "My first college boyfriend. I fell asleep during it." Sally guffawed. Rowan shook his head in wonder. Sally offered hers. A little arbor surrounded by pricker bushes behind the school football field, captain of the rugby team. Oh my, what a specimen. I averted my eyes as Rowan pulled himself out of the hot tub. I heard a champagne pop in the kitchen and clinking of glasses. He returned and poured bubbly all around. I hardly wanted more alcohol, but I was parched, so I took the drink. Cheers, Rowan said. Cheers, Sally chimed in. To flexibility, she added. Addled as he was, this last line cut through to Buck, and his eyes widened and met mine. Sally caught the glance and laughed. What? I mean, you guys being flexible to come see us out here. Cheers, I said, feeling myself blush again. It was nearly midnight, and the hash and wine were now acting as a soporific on me. I tried to catch Buck's eye, but he was babbling away, quite unlike himself. I think I'll hit the hay, I finally said, looking at Buck. But he just smiled, nodded, and went back to talking. Buck, we need to get home on the early side tomorrow, remember? No, he replied. I shot him another look, but nothing was landing. I shifted my weight and reached out my leg to give Buck a little underwater kick. Ow! He said loudly. Oh, sorry, I said, shooting more darts at him. I'd had enough. Well, I'm going to bed. Oh, don't be a wimp, Sally protested. I gave one final futile look at Buck, then I pulled myself out of the water and tried to wring out the t-shirt before I dribbled throughout the house. You were always such a prude, Jean, Sally said in a playful tone. Somebody had to be, I returned, trying to sound equally playful. Sally just laughed. I turned and went inside, my underwear dripping down my legs. I was out like a light. And when I awoke, I saw 1:30 a.m. on my alarm clock. I gulped some water from the night table, then turned to look at Buck. But he wasn't there. My first reaction was worry, but then anger flashed in. I threw on some clothes and walked out to the living room. The lights were still on outside, and as I crept around in the dark, I saw Buck and Sally alone in the hot tub, her breasts glittering in the light. They were laughing and passing the hashish pipe. I was about to burst out there and have it out with Buck when I heard his voice. I was wondering, Sally, he said, all slurry, where the hell you found a bust of Lennon in Hamilton, New York, back in the day. Oh, my, Sally said. You remember that? Sure I do, said the man I married. Funny, why do we call those things busts? It's from the Latin bustum, which may come from combustus, the combustion of the funeral pyre. Then later it meant tombs, and I assume the statues on tombs, but I'm not sure. Nicely done after all the hash. It was my dad's. Your dad's? And by the way he said it, I knew he knew about her loss back then, though we never discussed it. Why would you give me that? 'Cause I liked you, I guess. But things didn't work out that way for me back then. A pang for the high-rise Sally, Rose and me, always pursuing, never pursued. But my sympathy stopped there. What was she up to? For that matter, what was he up to? Furious, I went round to the window where only he could see me and flicked on a light. Buck looked up foggily, and I shook my fist at him. Then I doused the light and waited for him in the bedroom. He stumbled in and muttered, "Hash," then fell on the bed and slept. No one felt good the next morning, and breakfast was a somber affair. Sally and Buck were the worst for wear, and I simply wanted to get out of there. I suspected nothing of Buck and was only angry for the unseemliness of his sharing a hot tub with Sally naked until nearly 2 a.m. And then I wondered, too, at her behavior. Was it a dig at me? Had she harbored a secret love for Buck all these years? Did she resent what she considered my judgment of her behavior way back when? You two stayed up late, Rowan said to the other 2 offenders over a bowl of granola. You're not kidding. I feel like crap, Sally replied with half of her smile power. Buck said nothing, ate nothing, just drank tumbler after tumbler of water. And that was it. We threw our gear in the car, hugged goodbye, and took off. I drove because Buck could barely keep his head up. I hope you're ashamed of yourself, I offered as I drove. I'm so ill. Buck's normally ruddy complexion had turned a greenish gray. Serves you right. What were you thinking? I wasn't thinking. I was wailing high. Never been so high in my life. I'm sorry. He shook his hanging head. On the ferry, he threw up over the side. I let him alone because he was already being punished. A couple of days later, we were having dinner in our chairs, watching the tube. She liked you so much back then that she gave you a treasure from her dead father, I said. Who? What? I figured he wouldn't remember. The bust. Sally, I think she was in love with you back then. Buck didn't look up from his risotto. No way. I was just another conquest. She had a prodigious number of fuckmates. Could he really be that clueless? But I didn't bother to enlighten him or come to Sally's defense. I mean, after all, she just flirted madly with my husband. Well, you made yourself rather ridiculous. Ugh. We don't ever have to see them again, right? I left it at that. But it ate at me, both the bust and her bust, bouncing in the churning water. I constantly heard her lusty laugh, saw her bobbed hair and her slim figure. As the days wore on, I began to feel she had her revenge on me, on Buck, on all the boys at DKE, on the nasty sex culture of college life. I saw myself in the wet t-shirt, saw Buck's unsteady hand taking the pipe from hers, and felt our humiliation complete. About a month later, I was scrambling around in the upstairs junk closet, and I came upon the bust. It was a handsome object, a 3/4 profile of Lenin in bronze, his goatee-covered chin jutting out and his eyes narrowed in concentration. The more I stared at it, the more I saw the square-jawed Sally, proud, imperious, conquering. Soon I could only see Sally, not Lenin. I took it downstairs wrapped in a towel, walked it right past Buck, and out into the trash can. It sank to the bottom with a thud. "What you doing?" Buck asked, without looking up from his computer when I came back inside. "Nothing," I said. "Just cleaning up."
Check Out, a poem written and read by Jan Wieserek. Checkout. Being a checkout woman, standing in scent all day, opening a box, allowing musk and loneliness over the countertop. Customers think, what is that smell of want and cardboard? As if the store seals her boundaries in tape. Hope will grow into the eyes of a modern man with a bald spot and a soft spot for her to believe in, for her to check out.
Shrunken Head Spring Sale! Come and get the shrunken head you've been saving for. Now at an ultra low price, you can have your very own shrunken head. No need to see a head shrinker when you could obliterate all need for future therapy by having your own shrunken head. Feeling blue? No need. Just squeeze your shrunken head and feel all those mean ideas just pop right out of your brain and fall to the floor like mice droppings. That's how fast our shrunken heads work. They're as quick as a pooping mouse. Want to indulge in melancholy? You can do that too. Just take your head out for a couple's massage and give all those sad thoughts a facial afterwards. Rub in all those intrusive thoughts until they're as soft as a baby's bottom. Unsure which shrunken head is right for you? Don't worry, we've got big, friendly staff that is well experienced in the art of choosing and will help you find the right head for you. Don't let doubt continue to affect your life. Take control of your mind now. Customers are saying, I was up most nights praying. Now I just tug on my shrunken head and fall asleep in minutes.
Only one shrunken head available per customer. We are currently experiencing a quick rise in demand and there may be a waitlist. If you'd like to be added to the waitlist, please let us know. Allow 1 to 2 months for shrinking and delivery.
Dropman's Exam by Scott Finch. Read by Asha Dore. Middle English drought, draught, act of pulling or drawing of water from a well, movement, move in chest or similar grain, quantity of liquid drunk at one time, something drawn or written, probably going back to Old English drate, going back to Germanic drotu, whence also Middle Dutch jot, pregnancy, child, road, dress. Middle High German trot, act of bearing, pregnancy, Old Icelandic dratter, pulling, hesitation, action noun with the suffix to, from Germanic dragon, to drag, pull, in Old English and North Germanic, to carry, in the rest of West Germanic. Instructions. Read each careful questionly. There are no wrong answers. Consider what is. There are no right answers. Respond in full, using both. Did they have to tumble to see the hill for what it was? Why do Jack and Jill always tumble before they draw? Do they even know how water is drawn? They take their birthright for granted, but do they know what keeps the water flowing? Can't they see the forest for the trees? If the past is forgotten, youth is wasted, and life is but a dream, how do we learn to remember? If nature wastes nothing, is youth really wasted on the young? Why do draughtsmen only observe the surface? If they reach the source, will they let it run past, or will they draw and drink?
I spent a lot of time feeling angry at you. I was patiently waiting for D&D to conclude because I felt resentful. I was offended you wanted to roleplay a romantic scene with me. I was angry that you felt like there was nothing you needed to do to repair things between us, and things would carry on as normal. Then, underneath the anger, I realized I felt ashamed. I was ashamed and embarrassed that I allowed it. I told myself that if I adequately explained to you what the experience was like for me, you would see how misogynistic it was and would change. That I would be a catalyst of helping you become a more self-aware person. But the truth was, I thought if I stood up for myself and said, what you did was unacceptable, and you're the one who should feel ashamed, that it would somehow repair my dignity and self-respect. I would no longer be that vulnerable and desperate person I saw during the relationship. Now I just feel sad when I think back on it. I don't feel angry, and I no longer see the point in this exercise. I no longer feel a responsibility to shepherd you to the correct learning outcome of the situation. And perhaps it was a bit silly to ever feel that way.